Did you ever have aspirations to be a rock star, to be a recording artist, to play gigs, to be in a rock band?
Uh, yes.
Yeah, you're I feel like you're debating how much you want to reveal that was a goal of yours. I'll say for me, it was I think every kid that listens to music is going to fantasize about it. Like, oh, it'd be cool if it'd be fun to do this. I definitely lived in that zone. I never had I just knew I didn't have the drive or I don't know. I love music. I can play music, but I don't understand it on a level that I think I could be a legit creative force. So I never had any delusions about playing in a band worthy of playing gigs. So I guess I didn't go too far with it. But you have the thoughts, you have the fantasies.
Yeah, I mean, I played bass in like orchestra throughout junior high and high school, and I had a bass guitar that I bought at the same time. So I had that I was doing, and then like as I got into like high school and college, your friends are always like, "Oh, we should totally form a band," and
Yeah.
you're like, "Okay," and then you never actually do anything. I did play a couple of shows throughout college with a couple of different people. Nothing ever stuck. Usually just like glorified open mic nights where we'd go play a couple of songs. Um,
Covers, I assume.
no, actually, one of the most guys I played with actually wrote like all of his own songs. And one of them I like still know how to play because he like drilled it into my brain to know how to play it. So I like literally can still play that song. But
That's cool.
yeah, it was cool. Like, I mean, it was always fun, and like it just like you said, you kind of get to that point where you're like, I don't really think I have the grind to do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I still play bass. I have basses. I have guitars. Like I still have them. I still play them. But I wouldn't mind like I guess occasionally playing like a show with something, but like I just don't have the energy or the drive to like grind that out at 37.
Yeah. Yeah, like every band story you hear, they're like, I knew this is what I want to do from the time I was, 3 years old, and I, fine living in a van, and if that's all that ever came of it, I would have been happy with it. And of course, you're listening to an interview of them, so they made it whatever. But I was never in that headspace where like hell or high water, everything else
Well,
be
like you
damned.
just hear about like
This is my
you just
life.
hear about like the grind and like the living out of vans and like stuff, and I'm just like that sounds horrible. Like I like having a home. Like I like having a stable source of income. Like call that weird if you want, but yeah, I kind of like. So yeah, like, and I've thought about it occasionally. Like, I should do like I wouldn't mind doing like a show, and they probably would be like tribute type shows. Like, there's I find it really funny. I sent it to you before, but Michael Shannon like fronts an REM tribute band at this point, and they do tours occasionally. They did one. They just finished one where they were doing Fables of the Reconstruction in its entirety plus other stuff. And then they've done a couple of others, but he mentioned that like he'd have friends that would just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do a Lou Reed show. Do you want to come sing in that?" And the guy would be like, "All right." So doing something like that every once in a while wouldn't be too bad. Just find like some venue or just some club that's already gonna have people and just be like, you know what, we're gonna do a set of Cars covers or something. Like, just be fun. But that's really the extent of the drive that I have is, yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm thankful for musicians. Shout out to Mitch for this lovely theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts we have. The best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined, as always, by my replacement co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Hello.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Fake Band Month, and this week we are talking the 2001 film Rockstar. Andrew, what is your history with this movie? Did you catch it in theaters, perhaps? See it growing up? Catch it on cable? What's the deal here?
No history.
Was this
I've
your
seen it
first time
once at
watching
some
this
point.
movie? You
I
had seen
wouldn't
it
say it's
before?
my first time watching it. I knew the stories about it because I'm actually I really like Judas Priest, but like obviously the movie's very different. The members of Judas Priest have, like, when it was gonna be more of a straight story adaptation of Tim Owen's story, Judas Priest apparently like requested like input and it got denied, so then the movie kind of diverged and went a different way. Whereas his story, I mean, Tim Owens has said, he's like, I think my story is just a little too normal. Not that, Mark Wahlberg's story in this movie is not normal, but so you hear about it because of that. Obviously, the 90s was full of like 70s, 80s heavy metal bands getting new singers because those original singers wanted to move on to other stuff. Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, the like. But yeah, Judas Priest bringing in a tribute band singer to play their songs, that was, an interesting move, semi-controversial, and it's something that's now not really that unheard of.
Yeah,
it's happened
similar
several times
to
now.
Journey, right? Like that guy
Yeah.
came from like American Idol or something, or The Voice or something like that.
He's from the Philippines, I think. And so he's from overseas, and they just caught like a couple of videos of him singing Journey songs. Boston, when Boston came back about 10, 15 years ago, it was a similar thing. They lost their lead singer, Brad Delp, had passed away, and they sought out like 3 people to sing their songs instead, but one of them was a guy that Tom Scholes just found on YouTube singing Boston songs. He was like, hey, that guy sings them pretty well. So, and I guess like, on the one
Maybe
hand,
I was-
the
maybe I was
argument's
thinking
always
of
like,
In Excess, which had like their own reality show for finding a new singer.
Yes,
Somebody came
they
from
did.
TV.
yeah, and it's an interesting thing because like there's that piece of your brain that's like, well, yeah, obviously you'd want somebody who wants to sing these songs as close as possible because that's what the fans want to hear. But then there are other bands that are like, well, we don't want somebody to just be a clone of that person. We want somebody to be different. Like, you think of like Journey is interesting because there's a lot of different singers for Journey after Steve Perry leaves. There's a couple of different ones until they get Arnel Pineda, who's the one that is there now, or at least
Yeah,
was there. I don't
they
know if
went
he's
on
there or not.
quite an adventure to find a new singer.
Yeah, and it's quite a expedition, if you will. But
Yeah.
it's a so bands go through different things, and the guy they had in between Steve Perry and Arnel, God, I can't remember his name. But he sounded a little bit different. Like he didn't quite sound exactly the same. Like Styx lost Dennis DeYoung and got a guy named Lawrence Gowan, who's a fantastic musician, but sounds nothing like Dennis DeYoung did, really. But he sings those songs because the fans expect it. So it's an interesting thing to experiment with. But especially the older bands that are just kind of like trying to recreate that classic sound the best they can. There have been several instances now of them turning to tribute/cover bands to fill that gap.
Yeah, I was trying to do a quick Google of where Alice in Chains got their singer from. I actually got to see him perform. Sounded great. I don't know. I'm not gonna do this right now. But yeah, I think you're right as far as it being more commonplace. Whereas obviously, when this movie is goes into production, it was about the novelty of this thing happening. For anybody that doesn't know, as you said, the movie was based on specifically an article written about Judas Priest whenever they replaced their lead singer, and as you said, throughout production, it diverges to the point where you can see this movie totally devoid of that knowledge and enjoy it just fine. Like I don't think of really Judas Priest at all when I'm watching the movie because It's
No.
all original music. It's different names. After the fact, you might kind of line up some stuff and see how it started there, but it turns into its own thing. For me, I saw this movie back in the day, not in theaters, I'm sure, but at home, I guess we probably had a VHS copy because I've seen this movie a lot. I quite enjoy it. I'll go ahead and say that now up front. It's definitely in that comfort zone, comfort movie. I could probably put this on at any time. Enjoy it. I like the music. It goes down smooth. It's not nothing in here is too heavy. It's just a good time. Friend of the show, my wife, also really enjoys it. Turns out we watched this, watching it for this podcast. We watched it together, and much like Death Becomes Her, that woman knows every line of dialogue in this movie. It's on this.
Wow.
She says all the time, like, I don't wonder what I would know if I didn't have like 7 seasons of The Simpsons and 10 movies memorized, but it's pretty impressive.
Only 10? Not everyone's dedicated to the grind, I suppose. But
That's the grind you're dedicated to, like playing in a
yeah.
band, gigs, rehearsal. I don't
no
know.
way.
Watching films on repeat until you can quote them verbatim. That's right up your
There you
alley.
go. That's the dream, man. But yeah. So anyway, it's interesting to hear that. Just I didn't realize there were people that were. I didn't realize anybody was that big of a fan of the film Rockstar. So
You know, we'll get into this now. We were just at a record store this past weekend, and they had this soundtrack on vinyl. And I saw it, I thought about it, and then literally on the drive home, I was like, oh, they had a Rockstar there. And a friend of the show looked at me like, why don't we
What?
own it? Like we bought all we dropped a decent amount of money there. Why didn't we grab Rockstar? So definitely next time we're there, they still have it. I'm gonna grab it. I like the original songs in this movie. I also I don't know if you call it the theme song, but the song Rockstar by Everclear is featured in the credits. I think it's the first song on the album. That song I've heard 1,000,001 times because Everclear is one of my favorite bands, especially like in high school when I listened to music on repeat. That appears on one of their albums, Songs from American Movie Volume 2, I believe. So I know like every word to that song. And Lit, another favorite band of mine, wrote one of the Steel Dragon songs, which I did not know until researching this movie for this podcast all these years. Who knew? But let's set the stage a little bit here, Andrew. This movie is released September 7th, 2001. Let's go ahead and pause right there. This is the post 9/11 movie, technically. But, you know, it's got all the feelings of what we refer to as a pre 9/11 movie. Now, Andrew, in my
wait a second.
brain, I
Wait a
feel
second.
like
When is this movie released?
September 7th, 2001.
So it's a pre 9/11 movie.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you're right. It is a pre 9/11 movie. Excuse me.
It's right before. The world's about to end. Like after Rockstar. The world sees Rockstar and goes, oh no.
Okay. Boop, 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 boop. The point I wanted to make is in my brain, 9/11 happened and like the world shuts down for like a month. The country, I should say, you know, America. Like movies don't get released, sports games don't happen, but like when you go back and look at like the facts, it's not really what happened. Like it I think it's like the emotional thing weighing on your memory, or am I alone in this? Do you feel similarly about that time period?
What I don't know that I'm following. Say it again.
Okay, in my brain, 9/11 happens, and then it was like COVID lockdown for a month. It's like no school, no work, no movies, no sports games, news about the attacks 24/7 on the TV. But the country didn't pause that long. When you look at like releases and sports and just activity and flights, like it, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like for me, I don't want to speak for anybody else, like it's sort of the emotional weight and cloud of it that makes that time period dilated and feel longer than it was.
Sure. I guess. No, it's 9/11 is God. We joked about doing the 9/11 month, but we but folks, there's been a lot of movies about 9/11. But I think what makes
Can I make it
9/11
very clear that the joke wasn't? The joke was covering movies about 9/11. Like
Yes,
I'm worried what people are
9/11
thinking of when we
yes.
say yeah. Okay,
You should just cut that. You should just cut that line. I think
it'll be in post credits. I'm sure.
9/11 is a thing that like it's 9/11 and COVID are similar in that the legacy of them, I think, is the thing that lingers the most. Like, it's not so much, that 9/11 halted the country for a month, because it didn't. Like you said, it kept going, but like there was now this cloud over everything. Like it was like something became a lot realer than you thought it was going to be. Like this kind of intangible, like nobody had attacked the United States on our own soil since Pearl Harbor. 41. So I mean, you're looking at 60 years of this notion that we're kind of untouchable, for better or worse. We're safe in our country, and the legacy of the notion that we weren't changed a lot. Just even from just a pure, like you said, it feels like the world kind of changes after that. But what was different between the two is the notion that after 9/11, it was, that's not really true either. Yeah, sure, I agree.
What, you didn't think that we would be talking about the emotional effects of 9/11 on this podcast episode about Rockstar, Andrew?
Can't say I was planning on it, Bob.
Can I... We're already here. I'm going to make an analogy that's going to make sense to you and, I don't know, a handful of listeners. Follow me, if you will. Do you remember...
Oh, no.
The way people talked about The Undertaker losing the streak? The way people talked about when the ref hit 3, the entire arena of 80,000 people were silent. You could hear a pin drop. Did you hear that moment described that way?
Yes.
Not at all what happened. Like, as loud, as raucous, people are screaming, there's noise, but like, it's the way that you felt that I guess alter your memory or your perception of it. Is that an appropriate analogy to make for 9/11 and the way people look back on the weeks following that terrorist attack, Andrew?
Folks, we had a really good run.
Should we start the episode over?
we had a really, really good run. Chris's insistence on continuing to speak about 9/11 has officially gotten us canceled. I want you to understand that when some statement comes out that says this was a mutual decision, we had planned vacations already lined up, anything like that, it's all lies. We stepped in it, and we have no path forward. I will not be commenting on Chris's Undertaker comparison because I don't want to. So, anyway.
Was it Channing Tatum, Robert Pattinson? Who was in that 9/11 rom-com? Where like the twist is that surprise, it's on 9/11.
It's Robert Pattinson because it was on the list of movies you sent me for the hypothetical 9/11 month. Why are we still talking about 9/11? Why is this happening?
This movie, Rockstar, was made on a budget of $57 million. At the box office, it only brings in $19.3 million. We should say we've established this movie opened up before 9/11. It opened up 4th at the box office. So while certainly those events may not have helped its ultimate gross, it was on its way to being a bomb regardless, before any of those events, critically, it is not well received. Pretty mixed reaction. It holds a 53% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Even the positive reviews aren't exactly glowing. Kind of standard middle of the road reception.
Yeah, seems to be about right. I remember it coming out. Like, I do remember that. Like, I didn't end up seeing it or anything like that, but like, I do remember the movie like coming out and being. I felt like it made somewhat of a splash, but apparently,
I remember it being promoted on, I think, Mad TV. I don't think it was SN. I think it was Mad TV, and they had a mock-up. They had like a T-shirt of Mark Wahlberg with like a huge gut because the joke was like he was living the rock star lifestyle or whatever. That image burned into my brain. I'm gonna have to Google it now.
Heck yeah, brother. Yeah. So, not a movie that's not catching a lot of attention at the time. Obviously, there was probably a. I mean, I know there was definitely people that were hesitant to go out in public after the events of 9/11. But like you said, the movie was already kind of not super.
Andrew, we've
before
moved
that.
on. Come on. What do you? You don't need to go
Don't
there.
even do that. You spent 2 hours talking about 9/11, man. But it's but yeah, and it just feels like in general there's not really been a huge reevaluation of this one either.
The movie was written by John Stockwell. Now, I mentioned it earlier, like the inspiration for this is like an article that's published about Judas Priest and Situational Lead Singer. You tend to think of movies, I don't want to speak for anybody else, I tend to think of movies as beginning with a script, and then you build from there. You have a script, you have a story, and then you get a production team behind it, a hired director, they mold it, and they make it whatever. But that's not the reality. When you really think about it, like this is a thing that starts with a studio being like, I want the rights to this story. Okay, now we got to find someone to write it, or it happens to franchises all the time, like, or releasing a Disney animated movie on this date. Now, what's the movie going to be? Like, it very oftentimes does not start with a script. What's interesting about this is who they bring in to write it, though. It's John Stockwell, not a name I'm familiar with, but you dig into their work, they're probably first and foremost an actor, but they also have a ton of directing credits. You know what they don't have a lot of? Writing credits. They have one. They are the sole writer of Rockstar. How this happens is wild, but as a director, they directed Crazy Beautiful, which is the only movie besides Face Off I can think of that has a slash between two words as its title. Blue Crush, so some sort of teen movies of the early 2000s. Still out there working. Not too long ago, did the Kickboxer Legacy sequel thing, Kickboxer Vengeance. So still doing the thing, but again, this is the one writing credit, Rockstar.
Like, I was like looking, like I looked up this guy and I was like, why does that face look familiar? And I realized he's the guy in Christine, the one who doesn't get obsessed with the car. Like, I was like, what? That guy who was in a movie that John Carpenter wrote and directed has written Rockstar. It's just
heck
an
of a
odd
thing,
thing.
Andrew.
Like you said, he's got he has a single writing credit. Like, even all of his directorial stuff, like, he does not. I guess maybe take that back. It looks like he's got some writing credit. This is the only instance where he has a sole writing credit, I guess, though, because he writes the TV movie. He makes Cheaters. He co-writes some stuff that he's directed, and he's been out there. But it's so you got to wonder if maybe he was considered to direct it at one point, and so they were going to let him write and direct it, coming off some of the stuff that he'd done, because he won an Emmy or he got nominated for an Emmy for that 2000 movie he made called Cheaters, which is about cheating at school, not on people, in case you're concerned. So it's possible that like that attention like got people to be like, oh, we should keep that guy in mind for something. Ultimately, does not direct this. Directs a different movie that comes out in 2001 called Crazy Beautiful. Not sure. Yeah, the production is almost completely about the background of the movie and doesn't really dive into who got hired and why. But yeah, an odd, interesting choice. This is the only thing that he has just written. Anything else that he does have a writing credit on, it appears that he mostly directs. This appears to be the only thing that he's just written.
The movie is directed by Stephen Herrick, an alum of the show, because this man directs The Mighty Ducks. And we probably said this back on that episode, but you look at this guy out of the gates. We're talking Critters, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, follows it up with Mighty Ducks. I mean, a heck of a run. Also does the live action 101 Dalmatians. So tons of movies from my childhood. I can't say Stephen Herrick is a name that like I knew offhand, but you look at his work and it's like, oh, I definitely know this guy's work.
Yeah, I mean, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a personal favorite. Obviously, Critters. He also writes Critters. And then Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Just one of my favorite comfort movies. I met Keith Coogan once at a screening of that at Alamo Drafthouse. It was a blast. And then obviously Mighty Ducks, which if you're gonna play hockey, you gotta get into Mighty Ducks. But it's that and Slapshot. That's all you got. But yeah, and even like stuff like Mr. Holland's Opus, and like I said, 101 Dalmatians. Like, there's wild stuff in here, and then even things like the WWE film The Chaperone, which I'm sure we mentioned on the Mighty Ducks episode, but still out there, still doing stuff, doing his thing. But yeah, what a career.
You know, it'd be a good month is the action movie star that does the kids movie, right? The Chaperone movie, think of that. You had Vin Diesel doing The Pacifier. You got Arnold doing Kindergarten Cop. The Rock doing The Tooth Fairy. I mean, all these movies I'm naming rule. What are you talking about, Andrew?
Yeah, The Tooth Fairy. Real classy stuff there.
All right, Andrew. Well, let's talk about the movie at hand. Rockstar. All the positives, everything that we like. Are you ready?
Yes.
Chris Cole is the lead singer of a Steel Dragon tribute band. When the actual band's lead singer leaves the group, they call up Chris Cole to be Izzy, the new frontman. The rock and roll lifestyle soon tests Chris's relationship with his girlfriend and manager, Emily. After their relationship dissolves, Chris must choose between life as a rock star or a simpler life back home. That is it, Andrew. You know, I have not looked at the runtime, but this movie moves at a nice clip. It makes great use of montages. I feel like we're in and out, even though we have this whole rock and roll lifestyle arc. I like the pacing here.
It's got to be a montage. Also, he does not go back to his hometown.
I just said back home, but okay. Where does he go?
He's from Pittsburgh and he goes to Seattle.
Okay, yeah, good point. Well, Andrew, I'm not re-recording.
They're about as far apart as they could possibly be and still be in the United States.
You know, they really make it a point to show like it's Seattle at the end, like he's playing in I guess it's the 90s by then, right? I didn't even clock the years.
No, it's just like 6 months later. It's the mid 80s for most of the movie, and it's only like, yeah, it's like,
God, this is such a short time period. But he's got the shorter hair. I feel like they're trying to evoke grunge because he's got the shorter hair in the Seattle, and it's a coffee shop. Yeah. But I guess it's sort of the rumblings, you know, that's coming on the way. But anyway, they really make it a point to show you it's Seattle at the end, to the point where I just assumed that's where he went back to where. But you're right, it is Pittsburgh in the beginning. So shame on whoever wrote this synopsis. Andrew, we're going to get to all that. We're going to get to the scenes of this movie. But first things first, we got to talk about this cast, starting with a high point. Best casting, best performance in the movie, because every episode, we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with their performance, and we recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. So Andrew, kick us off here. Who is getting a Mark Strong Award for Rockstar?
My Mark Strong Award for Rockstar is going to Timothy Spall as Mats, the band's road manager. The nature of a movie like this means you meet a whole lot of people that there's just really not that much to. Like most of the members of Steel Dragon, you don't really get that. Like the lead guitar player, the drummer, and the bass player, there's nothing to them. You get a little bit with, Kirk Cuddy, the rhythm guitar player, but generally speaking, this movie really does hone in largely on Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston. But the one member of the Steel Dragon circle that kind of gets the most attention is the road manager, Matt, who is kind of this. Obviously, he's a longtime companion of the band, but he ends up taking this kind of mentorship / paternal almost role for Chris / Izzy as he gets kind of deeper and deeper into this world. Kind of tries to watch out for him, kind of tries to keep him on the right path, but ultimately, being a part of this band, he still has his own leans into the excess. But they have some great character moments together that I think are really important for the movie. They're really important for Mark Wahlberg's journey as Chris, and I think he does a great job with those big moments. He does a great job with the quieter moments. I think those are actually where they really get a chance to see how good Timothy Spall is. And like at the end, I think they're kind of silent. They're kind of when Mark Wahlberg decides that this isn't the life for him, you can tell that Matt's kind of, he's like, he can't. He's clearly not upset at him because he realizes that this is just not the thing that he wants. And so there's this kind of silent, the old high school jock nod, if you will, when you pass your friends in the hallway. You can't say anything, but you can do the nod. Anyway, yeah, I really like this performance. Like I said, he of the Steel Dragon circle, he's probably the one that gets the most attention, especially after like the audition process. And so in that regard, Timothy Spall as Mats, Mark Strong Award winner.
This is a great pick. I mean, Timothy Spall, love him in anything I see him in, which is typically, I think of him in a period piece, wearing lots of coats and layers, and he's quite cheeky. You don't know like what he's up to. I think of like Sweeney Todd. He plays a character in Enchanted, that Amy Adams Disney movie, where like they have him. You see him live action and animated, and like they nail like his animated version. They absolutely nail it.
They crush it. It's almost mean.
I'm realizing though, looking at like his Wikipedia page, that I don't think I've seen him in anything in a while because I don't recognize him. Like that picture they have for him, he seems to have lost some weight. Hopefully, all healthy. I'm not gonna do a deep dive on him right now, but like definitely him, like this era is classic Timothy Spall, what I think of. I love him here. He is this weird, like he's all about the rock and roll lifestyle. That's what he's dedicated his life to, groupies and drugs and excess. He's made his choices, but the way he's like not judgmental of Mark Wahlberg and the way that he's like, he doesn't like give him advice like you should get out while you can, kid, but he's like, look, this is what I chose. Like, you can't have a relationship, but this makes me happy. This is what the future is if you want it. And kind of just leaves it up to him to make his own choice. And like you said, he kind of respects the choice that he does make. Of all the lines of this movie, he's the one that gets quoted around this house the most. We just find an excuse to say, he said to me, I gotta take a piss. I don't know how we come up with saying that so often, but yeah, it's a really special performance because like screen time wise, there's not a lot, but like the impact that he has, it's he's really elevating that role. So Andrew, I think this is a great pick.
Thank you. Picked it myself.
I was almost certain you would maybe joke, maybe be serious, and give it to one of the musicians. I was expecting Zach Wilde, maybe Jeff Pilson because the bass connection.
Yeah, but like, there's just nothing to those guys.
I mean, no.
Like they all have like a combined like 6 lines of dialogue. Like Jason Bonham is the drummer, Zach Wilde is the lead guitar player, and it's actually funny because like I was listening to some of the songs because there are some songs on this soundtrack that are jams, but like they're so funny because there is this like 80s like rock sensibility to these songs. And then Zach Wilde starts soloing, and I'm like, that doesn't belong there. It's like that's a whole different thing. That's not 80s hair metal. That's a different thing. But don't get me wrong, it's great because Zach Wilde is, a deeply, deeply great guitar player. But and Jason Bonham is a great drummer. He is related to John Bonham. He is his son. Jeff Pilson, legendary bass player, used to play with Dawkins, plays with Foreigner, plays with a whole bunch of other people. And then like the only actor of the bands, I guess the only actors, is Jason Fleming as Bobby Beers, and then Dominic West as Kirk Cuddy. And but yeah, they're cool, and it's cool to see them, and it's cool to know that they like played these songs, but like there's just not a lot to most. Even like the band that Mark Wahlberg has before he joined Steel Dragon, Blood Pollution, it's kind of the same way. It's him and one other semi-famous person, and then the rest I think are actual musicians, to be fair.
Yeah, it's in each band, the person he has to talk to or have conflict with has to be an actor, and then the rest of them, they just fit musicians around him.
Yeah.
I want to talk about all these people, but hey, Mark Strong Award, Andrew, I'm doubling down. I'm agreeing with you. I'm backing you up. Timothy Spall as Mats getting the Mark Strong Award. It's just I was teetering mostly because of kind of screen time, but that's not really, that's a factor. It's not really what the Mark Strong Award is about. He's elevating the movie by giving it that, without being backhanded to the other. Yeah, exactly. Like the rock stars are being rock stars. Everyone's going on the journey you kind of expect, and he is not like a standard character just dropped in. Like he is. Right. He je ne sais quoi is a great word, but he brings something a little bit different to this movie that I really appreciate. And like I said, he's the most quoted, unless you count us singing the song.
It's definitely something where like I was a little surprised because I don't say this to be mean, but I think of Timothy Spall. I typically think of like Harry Potter, where he plays like a very sniveling Weasley character. So I was kind of like waiting for him to just be this kind of like really gross road manager. And like, there's maybe like 1 or 2 moments where like there's a moment where you're like, that's kind of weird. But like, there reaches a point where he just genuinely is kind of like trying to sort of look out for Mark Wahlberg, like he looks out for any of the others. Like, but they have these couple of quiet moments, and I think that's what sold it for me. Like, there's a scene at a bar where Mark Wahlberg is kind of feeling dejected because the band is they've kind of rejected him contributing to the band. They kind of just want him to sing the songs in a Steel Dragon way. And the irony of the situation has now hit him. And he has this kind of quiet conversation with Mats at a bar where Mats kind of gives him a little bit of his own background. And it's just, it's nothing earth shattering, but it's just delivered in a very down to earth, real way that just kind of shows you that while he loves the lifestyle, there's pieces of him that were outside of that. And you just get a lot of range on display in those moments. And it's good stuff.
Well, we got to talk about the titular rock star. You have Mark Wahlberg as Chris Cole, who they call Izzy when he's in the band, who has a British accent for all of one scene before that quickly gets dropped. We've talked about Mark Wahlberg before. We covered The Happening. We got to talk about him, and I'm sure we said there, maybe not his finest hour, but it's refreshing in a way to watch this movie now, because at some point Mark Wahlberg like hits the gym hard and becomes a very specific kind of action star, and he's kind of playing in that territory for his career moving forward. And then you watch some of his roles like early on, like he's just out there trying to be an actor. He's doing all kinds of different stuff. I've referenced I Heart Huckabees all the time because it's such a wild movie. His performance in particular, this performance, Three Kings, which was 2 years before this. I mean, real nice variety in the movies and the roles he's going after. And then, like I said, it's like he does The Departed, and people are like, oh, people like this when I furrow my eyebrow and look angry. Yeah, and that just kind of becomes his persona. And some of those movies are fine, but it's nice to see him doing a different things.
Yeah, when he kind of enters into that "If I Were There" series of films that he does, where like he does like a whole bunch of like real life movie. He does like Lone Survivor, and he did Deepwater Horizon, Patriots Day, like a whole bunch of stuff where I was like, oh man, you really like want to go back and stop all these things, don't you?
If I Were There.
But that's a whole month, folks.
Look, obviously Mark Wahlberg, it comes with this big asterisk. It's like he's got his past is what it is. If that's off-putting for you, I get it. I understand.
I completely get it.
How long we judge people for, and that's a moral question that we're not going to get into on this podcast. We'll talk 9/11 all day, but we're not going to talk about the morality of how we.
We're not going to talk about the morality of consequence culture.
But I like the performance here. The long hair never doesn't look like a wig to me. Some people can wear the long hair, some people can't.
Just does so bad. Like it's such. If it's not a wig, like he needs to fire his hairdresser.
But I was reading that Brad Pitt was attached at one point. What is this movie with Brad Pitt as the lead? I mean, oh man, I don't know. But Mark Wahlberg, he's doing a good job. I really like the scene. We'll get to talk about scenes where he really gets into the excess and doesn't realize he's in Seattle. There's just a little moment where he reaches for a little bit more. For the most part, he's just having a great time being a rock star. Certainly looks the part with those leather pants, but good solid stuff that's in this film.
Yeah, I agree. I think he sells the fish out of water piece of it pretty well. Like, obviously, when he's first kind of thrown into the spotlight, you can definitely tell that it's overwhelming for him, but then he sinks into it and then realizes that maybe, just maybe, this isn't what he wants for himself.
Jennifer Aniston plays Emily, his girlfriend and manager. Jennifer Aniston, I'm fascinated by. I mean, right away, you look at this cast, like, wow, they got Jennifer Aniston. This is a huge star. This is the biggest star in the movie. She's playing the girlfriend. 2001, at this point, she's still most known for Friends. But it's like Jennifer Aniston has just always been a huge... I mean, Friends was huge, don't get me wrong, but like, in an era where like TV stars and movie stars were separate, she sort of just transcends and becomes a movie star. But Andrew, for what movies? I'm not, this isn't a knock on Jennifer Aniston, but you look at her movies, like there's not a lot of hits. There's some well-liked movies, there's Office Space, but I feel like she's just is a movie. Do you know what I'm getting at here? I'm trying really not to make it sound like it's backhanded, but like, she has an aura that's greater than like any one movie that she's in. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, she's first off, supportive of Chris to an insane degree. Just her character. Like,
yeah.
Just the fact that this man's like living in his parents' house, living and breathing, literally a photocopy technician by day, 100% unhealthy tribute band singer by night. Like, she supports all of it. When he gets thrown out of the band, she kind of leaves in solidarity with him because she was their manager. Kind of tries to tell him like, hey, maybe this is an opportunity to kind of move on to something else. And it's that kind of story throughout this movie of just like, he spends his life before being in Steel Dragon pretending to be Bobby Beers, basically. And then when he's in Steel Dragon, he realizes that, there's when he's in a situation where he's forced to essentially just be Bobby Beers, he realizes that he hates it. He's like, oh, this sucks. And she supports him through a lot of that. And then ultimately, when things start going off the rails, she kind of is like, I need to step away from this. So she does bring that kind of outsider piece of it as well, that fish out of water, because as he kind of leans into the excess and starts going with the expectations, she's the one that's kind of leaning back a little bit and is like, I don't really know about this. And ultimately splits just because she's like, I don't want to, she can't do the day-to-day of it. She can't. And so I think she does all that really well. She has a lot of empathy for Chris that comes through. But as things start going off the rails, she gives him like the gentlest like breakup speeches possible, basically. Like, she's so much nicer to him in these moments than he probably deserves. But she does a good job with all of that. So, and then when they reconcile at the end, you can tell that it's, you know, she's not just happy to see him, she's happy to see that he's moved on and is now happier in what he's doing versus kind of where he was before.
Something that she's good at in all of her roles, I think she's got it here, is playing this very specific these levels where she is, someone says something to her that's like appalling or like out of line, like when the other girlfriends are like, oh yeah, you just gotta let them do what they do on the tour bus basically, and then they buy you stuff. And the way she's like, her words are saying, oh, that's really nice, thanks, but like you can see the level below where she's actually disgusted. I think she plays that really well, just really disillusioned with the whole rock star life, but trying to be supportive. And then Timothy Oliphant plays Rob. He's the guitarist in the tribute band and butts heads with Mark Wahlberg's character quite a bit, eventually kicking him out of the group. I had seen this movie a ton back in the day, hadn't watched it in a long time, had no idea Timothy Oliphant was in it. It's one of those things where like I didn't know who he was when I watched it all those years ago, and now to go back to see Timothy Oliphant, someone I'm very familiar with now, in a pretty small role, and it's like, oh yeah, that is him with that wig and that all that hair.
Yeah.
It is it's pretty funny. I like this character a lot. He's in the tribute band, but he's like, his opinion is that, look, we're just supposed to be having fun, having a good time, and, you know, hopefully we can make our own music that people get into. Whereas Mark Wahlberg is like, no, we have to be like note perfect with the band we are paying tribute to, and that's kind of where they're at odds. And then they sort of have this nice reconciliation at the very end of the movie where they just connect again on their mutual love of music that I think is really nice. So it's cool for him to kind of book in the movie as, you know, at odds with Chris in the beginning to coming to that the mutual understanding at the end is just nice.
Yeah, like that quiet scene with Mats I mentioned that Mark Wahlberg has. One of the things he says is he's like, I owe a guy named Rob a huge apology, because it's a flip of that, because earlier in the movie, Timothy Oliphant's character is kind of like, man, like they like playing the Steel Dragon stuff, but they're like, we should start throwing in some of our own songs, and they keep trying to like do that, and they try to like move forward, but like Mark Wahlberg is like you said, he's a perfectionist. They're playing this song at the beginning of the movie called Long Live Rock and Roll, which is actually a song by Rainbow, written by Ronnie James Dio and Richie Blackmore. But like he doesn't do this like squeal right on the guitar, and he stops the playthrough, pulls up the tape, plays it back, and is like, do it like this. Like, it's perfection. And that's actually their disagreement during their show that leads to him getting thrown out, is because Rob just tries to do a few little different fills. He doesn't really change the songs. He just kind of wants to do something a little bit different. But Mark Wahlberg's like, no, we're doing it exact. And that leads to the tension, and it leads to him getting thrown out of that band. And like you said, over the course of everything, Mark Wahlberg comes around to realize that, like, oh, like, it's not what I want. I don't just want to live. I just don't want to be just a Bobby Beers fill-in. And yeah, having that reconciliation at the end is great. Obviously, Timothy Oliphant, fantastic. Alum of the show. Did we do Scream 2? We didn't do Scream 2. We did Scream 3. Did we talk about him anywhere else?
God, we didn't do Scream 2. We talked about it quite a bit, and he's in the house 2, the second story scene, so I think we just found a way to talk about Timothy Oliphant.
Probably. Have we really never talked about Timothy Oliphant? I guess we haven't.
All right, we'll cover the crazies in I don't know, remake a month or something.
We didn't do Die Hard 4, did we?
Dreamcatcher, that's got to be a future episode of this podcast.
We did Die Hard 5. We didn't do Die Hard 4.
Yes.
Huh, weird. Anyway, Timothy Oliphant's great. No notes, but yeah, he's like you said, having him at the beginning and the end of the movie is kind of that guy that was with Rob in the beginning and then reconciling at the end, playing a song by The Verve. Good stuff.
And then in Still Dragon, Mark Wahlberg again butts heads with a guitarist. This time it is the character of Kirk Cuddy, played by Dominic West, alum of the show. We talked about him back on Punisher Warzone, where he played Jigsaw in a very over-the-top performance. Maybe he even picked up a Mark Strong award there. I don't know. There's no way to check. But
he definitely did.
You think so?
He definitely did. Like,
okay.
There's no way. Like, I know we love to make that joke all the time, don't misunderstand me, but there is zero way he did not get a Mark Strong for Punisher Warzone.
You sound pretty confident on that. But we're not going to be able to verify it.
We're not. No way to know.
I like this. I like this performance. I mean, he is real good at being a jerk, and kind of like in the beginning, he's the one that offers him the job and kind of takes him under his wing. But I feel like it's pretty fast where he really just becomes a jerk. Like whenever they come back from break, and Mark Wahlberg has written new material, and he doesn't entertain that idea at all. He's like, it's nice that you want to do the Chris Cole thing, but when you're here, you do the Steel Dragon thing. The Steel Dragon thing is, I write the songs. Is that clear? Like, he just flips a switch, and yeah, he's a jerk, Andrew. He's a bad guy.
Yeah, and it's weird because, like, he kind of implies that, like, you know, you got to stick with us a little bit longer before you get to do that. Like, right now, we just need you to be Bobby Beers, basically, which is what leads to his disillusion with the whole thing. But yeah, he's perfect at that writing that line of just like one day he can kind of be that guy that's on your side, everything's great, no problem. And then he's also like, even when he's like being the bad guy, you can still tell that he's trying to be like, yeah, but you know, this is like how it is, and this is just how it's gonna be. Like, you got to deal with that. Like, so he's very good at that. Yeah, he only really has 2 scenes of note. He's got this audition scene, and then he has the scene where he like rejects him outright. Those are really the only 2 scenes that the character has, which is true for a lot of these actors. Even like Timothy Oliphant is in maybe the first 20 minutes, a decent amount, and then disappears until like the last 5 minutes. And so it's an interesting movie in that, like, there's this wide-reaching kind of cast as we go through these different bands in these different places, but there's really only like 3, 4 like Mark Wahlberg, Jennifer Aniston, and Timothy Spall are like your main characters. Everybody else is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, which makes it kind of interesting to watch for such a movie that's got a scope that it does. For that focus to be so narrowly specific, it's pretty impressive.
You've mentioned Bobby Beers a couple times. It's the original lead singer of Still Dragon that leaves the band. Has a handful of scenes. Just want to shout him out. Played by Jason Fleming, yet another alum of the show. This time from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, also known as LXG. And another potential Mark Strong Award winner. Another potential Mark Strong Award winner because he plays Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And I know we both really liked that character and performance, but you know what I'm going to say. There's no way to check. There's no way to know for sure. But I don't know if we ever really see him sing, but he leaves the band. It's revealed that he is a closeted homosexual. Like, I don't think the public knows. It's handled weird. Like Dominic West makes one slightly off, kind of makes a joke at his expense based on that. But otherwise, it's just this random fact that's in the movie that, like, oh yeah, the original lead singer is gay, and no one knew during his tenure with the band, and that's like the biggest thing I think left over from when this was a Judas Priest movie. Just this random fact that has no bearing on anything else, but it's like, oh well, that was kind of part of that story.
You do see him sing because they attend a Steel Dragon concert earlier in the movie, and it's the one
Oh,
where like,
yeah.
Chris
Yeah,
sings
yeah, yeah, yeah.
along, and you actually see Bobby Beers kind of hears him and is like, "What?" It is interesting to me. I do want to shout out that Bobby Beers' singing voice, is provided by a gentleman named Jeff Scott Soto, one of those many singers of Journey that I oddly alluded to earlier. I thought that was an odd little flip there, and Steve Augury was the other guy I couldn't remember, but he's like he was the vocalist. Jeff Scott Soto was the vocalist on Yngwie Malmsteen's first two albums. He's been a sub-in singer for tons of different bands. Played with Trans-Siberian Orchestra for a long time. Has been all over, but yeah, he provides the singing voice for Bobby Beers. Whereas oh god, I can't even say that man's name. I can't even say it. It's Miljenko Matjevic.
Give the college try.
And so they do. So he sings all of Mark Wahlberg stuff while Jeff Scott Soto does the Bobby Beers appearances. Yeah, but Jason, yeah, like you said, it's an odd scene, because they bring up that he's gay and like the long hair isn't real. It's odd, but it is interesting in that like there's still these parallels where like, Bobby is kind of treating this departure kind of like he keeps trying to leave, but then he keeps like finding excuses to like sink back, and he's kind of like, I'm gone for real. Like if you let me leave, I'm not coming back. Like he does almost exactly what Chris did to Blood Pollution, where they tell him he's gone and he's kind of like, no, man, if you let me go, I'm really gone. Like they're both being fired from their respective jobs, but are still framing it as like, oh, well, I'm going to leave, man. Like you don't stop me, I'm going to leave. And they're all just like, yeah, that's the point. And so it's that odd, again, that symmetry that the movie kind of builds upon, that Chris kind of needs to break the cycle of, that he eventually does, but or that Chris not even realizing the things that he's kind of signing up for here. And but Jason Fleming, just a couple of scenes, gets a weird little thing during the credits too that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But good stuff.
That covers our main players, Andrew. I think it's everybody we need to really do a deep dive on. But I've got to shout out Beth Grant, wonderful character actor. You've seen her in a million things. I feel like she's ageless. I think she's always looked exactly the same. She's in Speed. I think she might get pulled under the tires. I think that might be her in that movie. It's a gruesome death. I know her from Donnie Darko, where she has the very memorable line, "Sometimes I doubt your devotion to sparkle motion." Your commitment to sparkle motion, excuse me.
I'm starting to doubt your commitment to sparkle motion.
There it is.
Question? Whatever.
I think but it's the most like
get the idea,
iconic
folks.
line, and between the two of us, I think we hit every word of it. She's in The Office. She's Dwight's babysitter that he brings to the dinner party at Michael Scott's house. You've seen her in a million stuff. She's just always wonderful. She is Mark Wahlberg's mother, and then his brother, played by Matthew Glave, aka Gulia. What's his first name? I want to make a joke.
Glenn Gulia.
Glenn
Gulia.
There it is.
The wedding singer. He's so like, he's basically playing the same character. Like he's a little bit more dim-witted here, but like he's always just the same jerk, almost exclusively. Like there's almost no other like option that he plays really, at least especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, he's just a jerk that's a cop that gives Chris a bunch of crap. And that's actually what's interesting and I like about the family. Like, his brother is the one that, like, teases him about trying to be somebody else. Like, he makes that reference to him more than once. He's like, you spend all your time pretending to be somebody else and wanting to be somebody else. But his parents, Beth Grant, and it's Michael Seamus Wiles that plays his dad. They're, like, almost excessively supportive of the man, and it makes me wonder how old Chris is supposed to be.
I don't
I
know.
that's kind of the question where I'm like, because obviously Mark Wahlberg in 2001 was like 30, like over 30. He was 71. Okay, 71. So he was just at 30 when he makes this movie. And don't get me wrong, I think he looks 30. Like, I don't think he like looks 18. But so I'm kind of like, how old is he supposed to be?
They're clearly
here?
not in high school, but he lives at home, and his room looks like a teenager's room. I don't know. College age?
Yeah.
Maybe 20s, somewhere in there.
Yeah, like early to mid 20s, I guess is the implication. But anyway, his parents come to his tribute band shows. His parents come see him when he's in Steel Dragon. His parents dance to the songs. They have a good time, and it's just it's a bit of a flip. You know, it would have been easy to have this movie be like, have the parents just be like when are you going to get a real job, son? Like, when are you going to do that? You know, when are you going to have this? And instead, they're just super supportive.
I love when him and his brother are going back and forth at the breakfast table, and he makes fun of him. He'd be like, you know, wear a tie, go to work, listen to Air Supply, and his brother just pauses and goes, "What's wrong with Air Supply?" it is one of those, like, I can see his character in The Wedding Singer saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, like, what's wrong with Air Supply? What is
All right,
wrong with
Andrew.
Air Supply, Marky Mark? You tell me.
All right, Andrew, let's talk about the scenes of this film, and let's start with the best scene in the movie. How about that? Or at least our personal favorite. So in your opinion, when is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene in Rockstar?
This is kind of tough because there's a lot of concert scenes I really, really like, but I think I have to shout out the bar scene that I mentioned between Timothy Spall and Marky Mark.
Marky Mark,
but
his Christian name.
But,
Marky Mark.
Christian name. Mark Tholomew, Marky Mark. This is preceded by the scene where he attempts to bring songs and an album cover like sketch work to Steel Dragon, and like they kind of say, yeah, the artwork's fine, like, you know, working on the songs is all cool, but like that's when he kind of gets rejected, and that's when like the reality becomes clear to him, because I guess he thought he was in Steel Dragon to be a member of Steel Dragon, but it's Kirk and AC, they write the songs. That's the Steel Dragon way. They write the songs. And they kind of maybe imply that, like, down the line, maybe he'll get to contribute a little bit more. But right now, they just need him to do the Steel Dragon thing. And they kind of present it as, you know, the fans expect certain things of Steel Dragon. And, it's like when bands change singers, and yet, you know, they still got to play the old stuff. Like, you can't get away from that. What I like, though, is when bands change back singers and they play the songs that the other singer recorded. Like, they don't ignore the other.
You like when they do that.
So, like, Iron Maiden is a good example of that. But actually, Iron Maiden is a really great example of that, because they had Paul Di'Anno for their first album, and then they get Bruce Dickinson, who's seen by many as like the classic Iron Maiden singer, and then he leaves in the mid '90s, and they get a gentleman named Blaze Bayley, which it's certainly a name to call yourself. But then he leaves after 2 albums, and Bruce Dickinson returns in 2000, 2001. But on several of their early 2000s tours, Bruce Dickinson would sing songs that they did with Blaze Bayley. He sings them very well, no less, because the band was still the same, so the music still feels like Iron Maiden, and then having Bruce Dickinson sing it just makes it kind of cool. But just when bands I like it in a sense that, like, the band's not hiding from it, because there's this sense that, like, when the classic group is back together, we just ignore everything that happened, you know, when we weren't here.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to do those songs. But with Iron Maiden, they literally play everything. So Bruce Dickinson will sing Blaze Bayley songs. He'll sing Paul Di'Anno songs. He'll play everything. And I think that is cool. Anyway, back to the point.
I'm trying to think of how many examples. Like David Lee Roth reunited with Van Halen at some point, right?
He did, and he never played a Sammy Hagar song.
Didn't play Sammy Hagar songs. When John Frusciante is in the Chili Peppers, he does not play songs off albums that he did not record with them.
He will. He doesn't do. So they don't
They-
do higher
they do
ground.
not.
Oh, wait, was he on the higher ground album, or is that still? He was. He is.
He is. That's Mother's Milk. But
Yeah.
mainly the ones where he, like, One Hot Minute, where he left in the 90s and Dave Navarro was in there. And then
do those.
between Stadium Arcadium and their newest albums, I think they released 2 with another guitarist. But so he doesn't play songs off those albums, which I saw Chili Peppers a couple years ago. They sounded great. I loved it. I don't mind those omissions because selfishly, I don't really listen to Chili Peppers albums that don't have him on there anyway. But it's controversial amongst fans. We're like, well, we like these albums. I want to, if I see them, I want to have the chance to hear these songs live. And I can get that, but like clearly the band doesn't take issue because people are like, oh, John, he's so full of himself or whatever. They can't do that. But like, if the other members of the band are all okay with it, then like, who am I as a fan to judge? I don't know. I can kind of see.
I would say that it's a little. I see it both ways, but also it would be like the other bit. Like there's a Yes, the band Yes, had a. They've had many years now where John Anderson has not been the lead singer, but there was a brief period in the late 70s where the keyboard player Rick Wakeman and singer John Anderson left the band, and Yes basically just merged with the Buggles. Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes, they just merged into Yes, and they did an album called Drama. It was a white whale for Yes fans for a long time because that band toured Drama, and then after that, John Anderson and a new version of Yes reconvened in the mid-'80s, recorded 90215, Owner of a Lonely Heart, but they never played Drama material, ever. And it was another thing that just kind of got put to the side because it was like, oh, well, John Anderson didn't sing that, Rick Wakeman didn't play on it, although Yes has had like 97 keyboard players at this point. But the irony apparently is that when they reunited for the 35th anniversary and it was going to be kind of the classic Yes lineup, John Anderson actually came prepared to play Drama material, and it was the rest of the band who was like, oh, we haven't rehearsed any of that, so we're not going to play that. And then once John Anderson left the band again, now they play him all the time. But it's a tough thing because I can understand an artist not wanting to play songs that they weren't a part of, but at the same time, it still kind of feels like, to me, that's sort of what being in a band is. Because like Klinghoffer, who was there with Frusciante for a while, and then was the guitarist that stayed after Frusciante left, like, he had to play all of Frusciante's songs. Like, he had to do that. He didn't have a choice. Like, he can't say, I'm not going to play those songs, because, to be fair, then they don't have any songs to play. But I understand why someone would say, I don't want to play songs that I didn't record. I just will say that I greatly appreciate it when the artist can see past that and understand that, well, hey, maybe I wasn't a part of that. That's part of the band's history. I think, like, Bruce Dickinson is probably one of, like, the most generous people in all of, like, heavy metal for that reason, and that, like, there's almost no selfish bone in the man's body, because, like, he'll play anything, and he'll sing anything. Like, John Lord passed away, the organ player for Deep Purple, and they called him in to sing a bunch of Deep Purple songs, and he was there immediately. He was like, no problem, I'll be there.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Anyway,
I understand why they don't do it, but I appreciate it when they do. Yep.
All of this is to get back to my scene because, Chris gets rejected by Steel Dragon for trying to contribute. And he goes to a bar with Mats afterwards. And this is where it's all become clear to him that, like, all he is to Steel Dragon is a Bobby Beers clone, essentially, at this time. And that's probably not going to change. And him and Mats have this very kind of personal conversation where Mats kind of reveals a little bit about himself. Obviously, he was talking about being in college, how he was engaged, and he just, like, had this moment of, like, he looked at his girlfriend's or his fiance sitting with him in this park at this, outside their college, and he's like, it's like my entire life had just been determined for me. And he's like, I couldn't do that. He's like, it was like almost scary to see it that way. And he's like, I needed something different. And has that moment where he's like, and she's married now to a doctor, and she's this, and it's a really kind of human moment in all of the excess of the rock star lifestyle. And he doesn't say that, he regrets it, but you can just tell there's a wistful nature to what he's saying, where he kind of looks back at, maybe the what if and just kind of realizes now that, but at the same, like now he's like, but this is my life now though. Like there's no switching there's no switching there's no switching back to what it was at this point. But it's a very human moment that you can tell is instrumental in Chris kind of realizing that this isn't it. This isn't where he wants to be for the rest of his life. And would it be easy? Sure. Maybe it's a lesson that all of us can learn, that just because it's the easy thing doesn't mean it's what you should be doing. Definitely not a thought I've had myself. But anyway, it's a very human moment in a movie filled about the rock star lifestyle, the rock star excess, plenty of dramatic moments and things like that. But this was a scene that kind of grabbed me, and I was just like, this is good stuff. It's like the final piece that Chris needs to be like, Rob was right. His friend from the beginning that wanted to play his own songs, and Chris said, no, we got to be Steel Dragon. He realizes that, being somebody else kind of sucks. Like if that's all you're gonna be, that's kind of terrible. But and it leads to them kind of departing the band and getting replaced by Miles Kennedy and sorry, Thor. Sorry, Mike. But it's a great scene. It's a great moment. It's a smaller moment. It's not a super long scene, but it's, like I said, in a movie that's kind of about so many different people. It just these are two of our main guys at this point that are basically having this real conversation, and it works. I like it a lot. So
I love this pick, Andrew. It's this movie. I said earlier, it goes down smooth. It's easy watching. It never digs too deep for the emotions, but there's a few moments where it does just enough. This is one of them, so I appreciate you highlighting it. And now I can highlight one of the performances because the rock shows are a lot of fun here. I think I'm just going to go with the first time Mark Wahlberg plays with Steel Dragon as the new lead singer, because there's this big hole to do a huge grand entrance. He's playing the first song. He's walking down the big staircase on the stage, and he doesn't just slip and fall. He tumbles hard. Like that is like a legit like stunt fall where he falls like 10 feet off this staircase and tumbles. And the whole thing is like, how's he going to react to this? How's he going to handle this? This is his big debut. Is he going to run off crying, not be able to sing or whatever? But he just stands up, doesn't lose a beat, and continues singing the song with blood pouring down his face. And it's like metal as hell. It's
pretty heavy metal, yeah.
Proving that he belongs there. There's people in the crowd that are holding up a Bobby Beer sign. He grabs a water hose and sprays them. Like he's embracing the rock star life at this point, and it's going to be a lot of fun moving forward until it's not. But this is like the beginning of that. This is him, because he's like super nervous before, and he's having second thoughts, and he's like rehearsing lines in his head, but like on stage is like when it switches. He's like, oh, I'm the rock star. Like, this is me. I belong here. I can do this. And on top of all that, all the original Steel Dragon tunes are so much fun. I mean, who doesn't sing, stand up and shout like to themselves? How did that song genuinely get stuck in my head?
Sammy Hagar wrote that. Speaking of Van Halen, Sammy Hagar wrote "Stand Up." Like, it's actually interesting looking at the songs, because, like I said, there's "Long Live Rock and Roll" is at one point in the movie, but that's an old Rainbow song that Ritchie Blackmore did in his post Deep Purple band. There's "Wasted Generation," which is by
that's Lit. That's the Popoff brothers. That's the lead singer and guitarist for Lit.
Oh, no kidding. And then Desmond Child's on that too, who wrote. He's like a legendary songwriter. He wrote "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss. He wrote Joan Jett and the Blackhearts' "I Hate Myself for Loving You." "You Give Love a Bad Name," "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi. Like, Desmond Child is like got the creds. So it's such a weird. So I'm just a little. It's odd that he's working with the Lit guys. That seems so strange. But
who knows how that came together? I have no idea.
No idea. But that's really good. "Stand Up" is written by Sammy Hagar. "Blood Pollution" is by Twiggy Ramirez, who used to be with Marilyn Manson, and he's with Perfect Circle and a bunch of other stuff. "We All Die Young," which is probably my favorite of all the songs, is by the band Steelheart, which features the lead singer who provides Mark Wahlberg's voice. Living the Life is by the guys who used to be in a band called Autograph. Yeah, like We All Die Young, like it's a song that he does for the audition, and then he plays it after he's got all the blood on his face. I was just like, man, like this is a jam. Like this is a genuinely great song. It's just throughout this whole movie, like anytime Steel Dragon songs play, I'm just like, this is awesome. I was like, this rules. Like, so now I got to be on the lookout for the vinyl soundtrack myself. And to add real quick, the performance you highlighted, that intro performance. Sorry, I forgot. Talked about everything else. Forgot stuff specifically about that one. This is great. I do love this scene. It is a genuinely cool moment because you can see that like he stops being. He like assumes the role like in real time, basically. Like he's doing it and then he falls, but like when he hits his head and when he gets back up, like at that point, he's the lead singer of Steel Dragon. He's got the blood on his face. He's in the moment. He's got everything, and it's a great pick. It's just cool. Like, yeah, what's more metal than singing with a bunch of blood on your face?
It's how much more metal could it be, Andrew?
The answer is none. None more metal.
None more metal. There it is. I love all the performances. Even the tribute band, their show, like in the little club, is a lot of fun. Whenever they go see the actual Steel Dragon in the beginning, it's a lot of fun. Like I think they really nail the live performances. There's the super unrealistic thing where people are like having a conversation in the crowd as if you can hear anyone talk at a metal show, but otherwise I think it's all shot, looks really good. I think all the lip syncing looks good. Like Mark Wahlberg, I'm convinced is singing on set and they just dub it, but like you look at his throat and how much he's putting into it, like I don't know how great it sounds, but I feel like he's really putting in a performance there, and the voice matches enough. It doesn't sound too wild. The Verve song at the very end is a little more mismatched, but it's suddenly a completely different voice. But all the Steel Dragon stuff, I think, sounds great. I like it a lot. I love all the montages that come after this. We get, one of several montages where they are just living the rock and roll lifestyle. You've got women flashing him in their limo. You've got him buying the Batmobile and having a impromptu race with it. Pouring their drinks on women at the bar, like all kinds of, of course, wild stuff. Trashing hotel rooms, nailing all the furniture to the ceiling of the hotel room. All that fun rock and roll myth stuff that you've heard about. You got to have some of that in the movie.
You do. Also, they're the Verve Pipe. I'm sorry, that's the name of the band, not just the Verve.
Andrew, people have been making that mistake for 30 years. No reason to apologize for it now.
All right, fine. As long as everybody else is making
Verve Pipe is Freshman, and the Verve is Bittersweet Symphony. I think I got that right.
Yes.
If not, it's the other way around. I can never keep
I
it
also
straight.
do love that Good Vibrations by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch is also featured in this movie.
Yeah, there was an actual prank they did on Mark Wahlberg on set. They're going to be, recording the scene of them on stage, and they start blasting a Marky Mark song and rocking out to it, and he didn't know it was going to happen. And you get the fun, him talking to the camera as Marky Mark in that outtake there during the end credits.
Feel it.
You also see on all of the slates the original name of the movie, which was Metal God. That's what the movie's going to be called up until pretty late in production. They changed it to Rockstar, which they thought would have a wider appeal than being metal specific. I don't know. #BP. They both sound pretty bland. Like I don't,
I mean, yeah, they do.
I guess Rockstar is better. I don't know if either one of them is going to make a big difference in the box office.
I don't think so. You just call it a hunch. I don't think it matters. At the end of the day, I do like. It's we're doing fake band month, so we're looking at fake bands, and this is one that I won't say ever like caught my radar really. Like I didn't go back to the wonders from That Thing You Do. I love the songs on that soundtrack because that soundtrack is actually something like, because we're not going to talk about That Thing You Do, so I'm just going to talk about it here. There's no.
We did consider it, but like that is a beloved movie, very well
It's
reviewed.
beloved and it's successful enough. Like I think maybe the box office was the argument, but it's like 90+% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like there's no argument that like Clue was enough of a stretch. Like we really pushed with Clue. Like That Thing You Do, I'd genuinely be like, we're just phonies now, man. Like we're just talking about good movies.
I also thought about Dewey Cox, but which didn't do great at the box office, but is also
Still
pretty
can,
well
like,
reviewed. So
ruined like
biopics for
like,
a long time. Yeah,
the like a generation. But like That Thing You Do, what I think is interesting about that movie is that all of the songs in that movie are written for the movie. There is no quote unquote real band featured at any point. Every song, even if it's a song not by the Wonders, is a different fictional
every song you
band
hear
of
in
the
that
time.
movie is interesting.
It's so there's
I've never
like,
seen it.
It's very, very good. Tom Hanks directs, but the band is really, really good. Obviously, That Thing You Do is like it's a bop, as the kids say. You know, kids definitely say that. But like on the soundtrack are like Wonders songs. So like you've got songs that are clearly by them, but like you've got a song that's by like a singing duo. You've got like a surfing song, like just your typical surf rock songs. You've got like big band female ballads. You've got sax driven music too. Like it's all sorts of stuff. You've got jazz mixed in there too. Like so obviously the music itself is written by a lot of different people, but it's all made for the movie. So like this soundtrack has a lot of like contemporary stuff. Like you've got like Motley Crue songs on this soundtrack. You have INXS songs on this soundtrack. Like there's actual real music mixed in with the Steel Dragon stuff. And a lot of the Steel Dragon songs are songs by other people. Like I pointed out, Long Live Rock and Roll is by Rainbow. The We All Die Young is by Steelheart. Like a lot of the songs are that way, but that's something I've always liked about That Thing You Do is it's a great soundtrack, but all of it's written for that movie. But the songs here, like I said, I'd never really gone back and listened to Steel Dragon songs before, but after I watched this, I was just like, man, there's some jams here. Like this is genuinely great. And like obviously We All Die Young starts with that pretty catchy bass riff, which worms its way into my brain even harder. But good stuff.
There's a scene after my favorite scene, after his big, debut with the band. We pretty quickly get into all the excess stuff. And there's this scene where it's him and Emily, his girlfriend, and they're with the character of Tanya, who we haven't talked about yet, but she's someone that hangs around with the band. Has been with the band for a minute. Played by
almost
Dagmara Dominic. I feel like I'm probably saying that wrong because there's Dominic. There's a lot of consonants in that last name. I'm not exactly sure how it's pronounced.
That is a Z, a Y, and a K next to each other, so that's a no.
So they're partying in the after party, and she's a very sexually ambiguous character, kind of just has a sexual energy with everybody, and there's this heavy music playing. She slips some presumably ecstasy to Mark Wahlberg and maybe the Jennifer Aniston, and they're making out. Then it's all three of them, and she leads them somewhere, and we kind of fade to a party in a hotel room, and then the next day where there's naked bodies everywhere as Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston wake up in different rooms, and they find their way out and navigate out the field of boobs to meet up in the hallway and sort of just kind of remark on the wild night and move on. It's the kind of thing where, like, I mean, this movie's rated R because there's some choice words and there's the nudity, but I don't think it goes super heavy. Like I've said earlier, it's a smooth movie. But I would argue this scene is like my note says, well, that was edgier than anything they did in Bohemian Rhapsody. Like that movie, like shaved off. I mean, God, I don't want to go, hashtag positivity podcast. didn't enjoy that film, and that was one of the things I really didn't like. Is just how clearly this was not representative of the lifestyle.
What I will say about Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's exactly that. It's that Freddie Mercury would not have wanted the movie made about him to be Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's a great way to put it, Andrew. Yes. So even though this isn't like the most hardcore thing you could show, it's enough, and like I said, it's more than some other movies are willing to go. But I appreciate this is sort of what blurs the line between like, well, this is great, this is what I wanted, this is a endless party, but there's that moment the next morning where they're both like, is this what we want? Is it possible to have a relationship in this lifestyle? Is sort of like where the seams start to show.
Yeah, I agree. It's another pivotal moment. So like, the montages are kind of the passage of time, and then we kind of check back in for these pivotal moments, and that's kind of their first, like you said, it's their first taste of like the rock and roll excess. And there's a scene with Tanya that's just so strange, and it felt so out of place in the movie. You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you want to talk about. That's a scene. It's very clear what they're telling you, but
right, but it also
as a
doesn't
kid,
seem clear. Like,
yes, especially as a kid watching it, I'm like, the scene is that we see them peeing standing up, but they present as female. You're led to believe it's a woman this entire time, and who knows how they choose, want to be labeled. But even as a kid, I was like, are they saying that they have a penis or that she just has the ability to pee still? Like, I don't.
Yeah,
I think that I know what they want me to think, but for some reason, like the way they do it doesn't sell me on that.
It's literally that scene, and then it's never brought up again. Like,
yes.
Ever. Like, it's not mentioned at all ever again. And like, it's like he steps and he looks, and like, so she's peeing standing up, and you're just kind of like, oh, like, is she just capable of doing that? But like, they show Mark Wahlberg kind of like recoil for a second, and it's like, oh, he's like just realized that this woman. Like I said, I don't know. Like, it's the one scene in the movie where I'm genuinely like, this feels kind of out of place with the way the rest of the
I'm
movie
so
is
glad you
told.
brought
Like,
that up, because I that's exactly how I've always felt about that scene. Like, I think I know what you're trying to make me think, but like I don't, for some reason I'm not sold on it, and it's also like, why are you telling me this?
Why is
like,
this
why?
here? Like,
yeah.
like you literally that like nothing is the movie gains nothing from this scene being here. Like, you could have done any other things with that character that would have had the exact same effect, essentially. Of him
I mean,
like, oh God, what had happened? Like,
I guess it's just like he comes from Pittsburgh. He didn't come from a small town, but he comes from a normal life, and this is his first exposure to all walks of life and all kinds of stuff. And maybe it's just the first time he's come across it.
that's what he gets for making fun of Air Supply.
I'm glad you brought that scene up.
It's just it's the one scene in the movie, genuinely, where I'm just kind of like, ha! Like, genuinely, when that scene, like, finished for the first time, I think I paused the movie and was genuinely like, what? Like, wait, what just happened? Like, I don't, like, I was genuinely so confused. I was like, and then, like, I think I rewatched it. Like, I watched the movie a couple of times, but, I, like, genuinely wanted to watch that scene again. I'm like, are they saying what I think they're saying? And
you're like listening to the pressure of the stream, trying to figure out what organ it's coming out of.
Where is it hitting on the bowl? Like, what kind of angle is this? What's the trajectory? Like, is there a
funnel involved? Is there a hose? Is there an apparatus of some kind?
Oh man. Obviously,
okay.
People do whatever you want with your lives. We're not judging anyone. We just believe the scene is presented almost woefully out of context and is never brought up again, which makes it seem kind of strange. But
yes.
Obviously it's set during the 80s. Obviously they're I assume we're kind of building on that like androgynous nature of that was seen by many high profile musicians at the time. But it definitely feels a little, it's just so out of place in a way with like a movie that otherwise steers, like even like the scene that precedes it with like this like drug induced almost orgy type scenario. Like it plays fast and loose to try to like present that in kind of the most inoffensive way possible. And
Yeah,
then
I'm
has
still
this
not
weird
certain
moment.
either one of them slept with another person. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm still not
Like, you
certain they
don't
had
know.
sex with someone that's not their partner.
Right, but then the movie makes a point to have a scene of this character peeing standing up, and you're just kind of like, what? Like, you're just kind of confused. Like, you're just like, what are we doing? So anyway, a strange scene. But who knows? Who knows?
I just checked the running time of this movie because I've talked already a few times about how it moves at a brisk pace. A little longer than I expected, an hour 46. It feels like it's only a little over 90. Like, I would guess under like 100 minutes, and it's just over 100 minutes. But it moves quickly, and there's this scene that has always stuck with me. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's whenever, Emily, his girlfriend, decides that she's not going to tour with him. She's going to work on her business back home. And she says, no, don't worry about it. Keep doing your thing. We'll meet up in Seattle. And she shows up whenever the band is in Seattle. She makes her way to the hotel floor they're staying on. Groupies and partiers everywhere. And he comes out of a room clearly wasted, drunk or whatever else. And it's just really sad. It's just a really sad moment where he's like, I thought you were in Seattle. And he's like, yeah, we're in Seattle. This is Seattle. You're in Seattle. And then like 2 minutes later, he's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll meet up. Come on, we'll go out, when we're in Seattle. Like he forgets again that they're in Seattle. Just has no idea where he is, what's going on. And it's effective. It's good enough. Like I said, this movie doesn't dig like too deep for those raw emotions. No one's sobbing you into the scene, but it's just definitely a moment where like there is a dark side to this endless party lifestyle, especially if you have someone that loves you, and you can't, dedicate to them the way they deserve. And it's really his, rock bottom. And it's like the next scene where he's like quitting the band. Like it moves so fast. I remember getting to this moment and being like, oh yeah, this is the scene that I remember, like rock bottom. And it's like 15 minutes from now, he's gonna be singing in a coffee club, like in Seattle. Like we are on our way out here. But I think it's a real effective, the way he can't remember what city he's in. It's a real effective way to show what's going on here.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, the movie, it doesn't, I was kind of like that too. I kind of got to the point where I was like an hour 30 into the movie, and I was like, how is this resolving? Like this is where are we going with this? Like, and then that resolution is Miles Kennedy replaces Mark Wahlberg in Steel Dragon.
Lead singer of Alter Bridge. Is that the guy? Did not certainly didn't recognize him, but did not know that
a
until
variety
looking
of
through the
various
cast here.
things. Obviously played with Slash a whole lot, very notably played with former members of Led Zeppelin when they attempted to reform after their reunion in 07 or 08, whenever that was. Obviously, this is way before any of that. So this is kind of when he's still not really famous yet. But it's the same moment. Like he has that exact moment that he had with Bobby, where Chris sings the song with Bobby, and Bobby kind of notices and is taken back a little bit. But he has that same moment, but reacts differently. Brings Thor, as he calls himself, up onto the stage, sings the song with him, and then literally just walks out of the venue and leads this stranger to finish the concert that the band doesn't seem that shocked by.
Yeah.
That's what kind of got, like, the band doesn't at all seem to be like, who's this weirdo now singing the song? They just go with it. Which, maybe that's just show business. The show must go on, but it just seems so strange to me that, like, nobody else in the band at all seemed to question that this stranger was now finishing the concert.
All I can maybe I don't know. Maybe he always pulls a fan up to sing part of that song, and the whole twist here is that they don't expect him to leave. Maybe I don't know. I'm maybe grasping at straws here, but you get what's going on here. He's exiting the band. Yep. He's cutting his hair. He's singing sad acoustic songs in coffee shops now, and finding his own voice as a musician. And it's a nice way to resolve the movie.
There's no better way to strike out on your own as a musician than to form a band with your friends and sing about how lonely you are.
Should we be in a band instead of a podcast, Andrew?
No.
All right, Andrew, 2 weeks into Fake Band Month. We have 2 fake bands. We have the Lone Rangers from last week's episode, Airheads, and now Steel Dragon. I gotta say, Steel Dragon is taking the top spot for me for ranking these bands as we go through them. We just hear basically one song from the Lone Rangers. It's okay, but every Steel Dragon song is a banger. So I gotta go with them.
I enjoy the Airhead song quite a bit, to be very, very clear. But yeah, Steel Dragon, just more songs by Steel Dragon. It's tough to bet against that, especially when all of their songs feature like wicked Zakk Wylde guitar solos. So, no disrespect, it's merely an airplay question, which just speaks to the Lone Rangers issue. So, I've heard more of Steel Dragon because the Lone Rangers have a single song on a single demo. So, yes.
Well, Andrew, like many rock stars before you, it's time to enter AA. It's time for Ask Andrew. This is part of the episode where I just ask you a question and you have to answer it. And Andrew, I want to ask you a question inspired by a scene of this movie, Rockstar, the one we just talked about. There's a scene where their tribute band comes face to face with another cover band in the parking lot of the Steel Dragon show. They have choice words. They face off with each other.
This is so dumb.
The way the lead singer fights lead singer and guitarist fights guitarist. Well,
they're all dressed the same. They're all dressed the same.
What?
They're dressed as the
Not
band.
exactly the same, Andrew. Not exactly the same.
Not exactly the same. He's using the embroidery from a different jacket that he never wore during that tour. Blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
But they're all clearly dressed as characters, but they're all fighting each other, so it's literally like that scene in Seinfeld where, like, the two groups run into each other and they're all doppelgangers, and it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg dresses down the lead singer of the other cover band because the jacket and those pants, that combination, it's not what he wore in that specific tour. And has anybody ever seen Bobby Beers with red lapels? No, apparently. My question is, he clearly has a super fandom level of knowledge of this band, almost obsessive level of knowledge to know that not just the music, not just the lyrics, but what they're wearing on tour, costuming. Andrew, you like music. You like a lot of bands. What artist, what band do you think you come closest to having this deep level of knowledge? Either now, currently, or maybe at one time, like in high school or college, maybe you were super into a band at this level. But is there a point where you could have noticed something as like a lapel color and recognized that it wasn't what they wore, or maybe a guitar style, or what band do you think you would rate the highest on this specific obsessive scale?
Pink Floyd is probably the closest that I got to being that into a band. It would never be like to the level of like what they were wearing, just because Pink Floyd typically didn't really do costumes throughout their career, like throughout the 70s and the 60s, like especially into the 70s. Like, they just kind of dressed like dudes. Like, they just wore t-shirts and jeans and stuff on stage. That really wasn't the deal. But, like, you know, certain guitars, like, I know David Gilmour started using, like, the Candy Apple Red Stratocaster, and, like, with Pink Floyd, he started using it specifically in 86, 87. And, like, I could do stuff like that. Like, where it's like, okay, I know on this tour, he wasn't like, his all-black Stratocaster, he didn't use that until this tour. Like, I can do things like that with Pink Floyd. There was a time where it was probably a lot more granular than it is now. But even just the history of the band, I used to have like hundreds of gigabytes of Pink Floyd bootlegs from like all over the band's career and history, just from like soundboard recordings that leaked onto the internet or FM radio broadcasts. Because, you know, that used to be a thing that people did. Like, radio stations would broadcast concerts like on the local radio for like, you know, shows or whatever. So those became really sought after because they were typically super high quality, because the radio station was usually plugging into the board to get the feed for the concerts. And so that, the grail of bootlegs, quote unquote, is either a soundboard recording or like an FM broadcast, because it in turn usually was a soundboard recording. But obviously plugging into the board was the dream. And with Pink Floyd, there was a lot of stuff, especially in the late 60s, early 70s, where you could get soundboard stuff or television broadcasts or things like that. And people hung on to a lot of that. So as you got into the 80s, the 70s, the late 70s into the 80s, like Pink Floyd had a very notable Animals tour in 1977. There's not really any super high quality versions of that. But there's another unfortunate fact about Pink Floyd that I don't know that people are willing to necessarily listen to. It's that for a long time, Pink Floyd really wasn't that great live. They didn't really firm all that up until they start getting towards the wall. Like the Animals tour, they sort of figure it out, but like I've listened to recordings of Pink Floyd throughout their whole history, and yeah, they took a while to figure it out. But if there was a band that I was able to get, I mean, even just in that short amount of time, I've probably spoken more about Pink Floyd than most people know. So that knowledge is still buried pretty deep.
Okay. Good answer, Andrew. I won't open the question. There's a whole can of worms to be had here, but we're about to end the show. But I just want to, you and I, mutual friend Doug, who is like us, a big fan of wrestling, but has this type of knowledge with wrestlers. And I remember years and years ago, we were at a Walmart and we came across a toy of DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. And the toy came with the big gold belt, the WCW championship. And he almost immediately looks at it and goes, well, he never wore those tights when he had the championship, and just like dismissed it and like moved on. Like he wasn't like, it was like almost involuntary. Like he wasn't like showing off or anything. It was just like that immediately stuck out to him as like red false. And yeah. I don't have, my brain does not work that way. Like there's some stuff that maybe at one point I was obsessed with enough that I could, but it does not retain in that way. And you also with wrestling, this is, I don't want to open, but like you can recite the lineage of certain championships and name every champ. And I
hate it. I hate that I can do that.
It's
there
wild.
was a time where just I started watching wrestling in a tangible way in 2002. Like I didn't catch the wrestling bug like in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like most people, I got into wrestling when everybody else was leaving wrestling. Great move, but so I just followed it really heavily. So as titles appeared and changed and moved around, I would just for some reason remembered all of that. And even now, like, because of how it's happened, it's not hard for me to just recall, because WWE loves their long championship reigns. It's like, name me a man who was WWE champion for the last 2 years. Roman Reigns. All right, that's on me. I set the bar too low. But it's a weird thing. I'm not that granular with like attires. Like I don't know DDP's career enough to be like, oh no, he never. I guess maybe depending on what tights they were. Like I don't know what, maybe if they were a certain type, I know he didn't wear those when he won the championship. But yeah, I would have to see it to really comment on it.
Your brain is just like, title lineage. This is important. I'll put this here in my brain right next to every line spoken in the Big Lebowski. Pythagorean theorem. We don't need this. Let's get that out of here.
I do still know what the Pythagorean theorem is. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, so it's not hard. No, I sometimes question the things that like stick in my brain, like mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. But
all right, sound off in the Discord. What is the nerdiest thing that Andrew said in this episode? Was it Pink Floyd? Was it wrestling? Was it nerd stuff from school? Let us know. Hit us up. There's a link in the show notes. Come back next week as Fake Band Month continues. We'll be talking about the movie The Rocker. And until then, just remember that maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. And thanks to Mitch for the music. You can follow him on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. It's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm thankful for musicians. Shout out to Mitch for this lovely theme song.
That's what we call
Hello!
it, cheap pop, folks.
Wait, what?
That's what we call it, cheap pop, folks.
Yeah. Right here on this podcast. Hello,
in this city, your hometown. Sorry.
I'm going to start this podcast eventually, Andrew. All right, Andrew. Well, let's talk about the movie at hand, Rockstar. All the positives, everything that we like. Are you ready?
Yes.
Should have said, are you ready to rock? But I'm not going back.
To which I would have said, no. I can rock and roll all night and part of every day. I can rock from like 1 to 3.